Director Espinoza.
Present.
Director Hoag.
Here.
Director McDaniel.
Present.
Director Moran. Director Nagy.
Here.
Director Nelson.
Here.
Director Pereira.
Here.
Director Silvera.
Present.
Director Pedroso.
Here.
Chair Serrato.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Mary Michael. Director Pereira has been kind enough to do the invocation, and after that, I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Pereira.
Check, check. Dobless, check.
Now broadcasting nationwide. Ready?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for loving us so dearly and snuggling with us when we need you. As of today, we asked for your guidance during this meeting that we might make good decisions that serve our citizens well, and that our hearts are pure and our intentions are pure. And I ask that you bless each of us as we leave here and get us back to where we came from gently and safely. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Director Pereira. If everybody could please remain standing and face our flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On to item 2, which is the approval of the agenda. Any discussion on this item, or is there a motion?
Pereira, move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any opposition? Take it this way.
Nay. I oppose.
Okay. Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Takes us to item 3, public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would wish to be heard at this time? If so, you have 3 minutes to address us on any item that's not on the agenda currently. Okay, seeing none, Stacy, I believe you had something you wanted to address.
I do, and I didn't even give him a warning. I did want to introduce James Moore. This is his first board meeting. He is our new director for the Regional Waste Authority. And James, would you mind just introducing you can do it better than I can. So if you could just take a minute to introduce yourself, please.
Certainly. Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Today's day 19 on the job, and was hit with a surprise inspection from Cal Recycle at the landfill this morning. So jumped in with both feet from the start. I've got about 30 years experience in solid waste. Started in Fresno County in 1996. Prior to that, served 10 years active duty in the Air Force in engineering. So I'm very happy to be here. Been in the Valley for a long time. The last 17 years I spent as a consultant in solid waste, working all over California and the United States. So I'm very happy to be settling in here. Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you, James.
And I am also very happy that he's here. Thank you, and he's been doing a great job.
Great. A lot of good work ahead of you, for sure. All right, item 4, which is the recognition of former Director John Cale, the man in the bowler hat who's sitting there in the audience from the city of Atwater. So, John, we'd ask you to come forward at this time, and if anybody would have anything, if anybody has anything nice to say or not nice about John, we're here to recognize him. I have a plaque for him, and if Lloyd, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it was just a pleasure to serve with you. You brought, I think integrity and a level head and all those things to this board, which I appreciate. And so anyways, just thank you for your time, and look forward to serving with you again sometime.
Director McDaniel.
Yeah, thank you, John. I just want to say, hey, it was good. Policy Council, you and I had a lot of battles. We fought together and appreciated you having my back. I kind of got out there in the front sometimes and felt like maybe I was by myself, but you were always right there in the battles with us, serving the county of Merced. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Espinoza.
Thank you. The same thing I enjoyed working with Mr. Cale, Mr. John Cale, and like I said, he's still on the council, so hopefully we'll continue working, and he'll continue doing a great job. Thank you.
Director Pedrosa.
Thank you.
John, thank you very much for your service up here on the board and your service continuing through Atwater. I've gotten to know you through our One Voice trips, and you've always provided some levity, but also some guidance on what we're working on. So thank you very much.
All right, Director Nagy.
Thank you. Yes, John, I reiterate what everyone else has said. It's been very good working with you. You always have a unique insight to things that's a different perspective sometimes, but it's very well respected and thought out. Served with you on LAFCO as well, and enjoyed every minute of it, and I wish you all the best.
Director Silvera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, John, thank you. I think it came at a time when we kind of needed, this board was a little bit crazy. That's my words. And we brought some civility back to the board, and we didn't always agree on everything, but we could have honest discussions, and then honestly felt like when the meeting was over, we could go out and enjoy a cocktail together afterwards. So I appreciate that, and thank you for your service, and looking forward to continuing working with you.
All right, anybody else?
Thank you so much, and good luck to you, and it's been a pleasure working with you.
All right. No, thank you, John. It's been a pleasure. We have a plaque for you, and just been an honor. You're an important voice, an important presence in local politics, and I think you really contribute a lot and do a lot to help, as everybody said, bring stability to this board, bring intelligence, and just an adult perspective as well. So thank you for your service, and I'll come up and...
What's that saying? They'll come up.
Yeah.
I'm
saying, so does everybody else.
Marissa.
As everybody else.
And I was going to say the same, John, but they said it all, so ditto.
Next item, item 5, the Citizens Advisory Committee report. We have Maddie Brown.
I think we have a substitute.
Or a substitute. Renee Gutierrez. Renee, how you doing, sir?
Good afternoon, Chair Serrato, directors, and staff. I'm not Maddie Brown, but I'm her alternate for today. I just want to present the MCAG Citizens Advisory Committee highlights. We actually met on February 3rd and had quorum. Staff presented the MCAG and TJPA items, action items, information, and discussion items. All action items were approved that were on the agenda and as presented by staff. Items generate discussion around unmet transit needs, funding sources, and outreach strategies and efforts. And for the regional housing planning update, discussion was around options for seniors, disabled, and low-income families. And lastly, update on the Brown Act meeting requirements. There was further discussion on some of the barriers that the citizen committee members may or may not have in the future. And staff directed them to reach out to the state representatives to raise concerns over the newly adopted attendance laws that are going to be set forth. So that concludes our Citizen Advisory Committee meeting highlights.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, as always, for your contributions. Anybody have any questions for Renee or any comments? Okay, seeing none. You are dismissed, sir. Thank you. Item 6, the high-speed rail update. Garth Fernandez.
Do you see them, Mary Michael? I did get.
Yep, they're coming
There's
on.
3 in total. Tony Tinoco is the third.
Tony Tinoco as well.
So there should be 3 total.
Got it.
I see 1, 2, and Tony should be 3.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, directors. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear, Garth. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Along with me, I have Denix Ambia, who is a senior contract manager for the Y extension. Probably update you later in the presentation on our efforts taking our project through Merced. And then we have Tony Tinoco, who is the Deputy Valley Regional Director with me out here in the Valley that is helping with the presentation. So let me just begin. I am Garth Fernandez. I'm the Central Valley Regional Director. And today I'm going to walk you through some of the high-level updates on the HSR program, what our progress has been on the 119 miles in construction. We have a significant work going on along the 119-mile corridor, and not necessarily everything is visible to the general public. So like I said, I got Denix, who's going to walk you through the extension, and then Tony is going to help with the slide deck. So Tony, can you get to the next slide, please? So consistent with our mission to get high-speed rail here as soon as possible, right? So our decisions that we make on the program are based on, guided by the following three principles. We want to get high-speed rail service in California as soon as possible, and we try to get that through the initial operating system between Bakersfield to Merced. We are committed to make strategic concurrent investments that's be linked over time. We have made investments both in the Bay Area and LA, and then we want to lastly position ourselves to construct additional segments as funding becomes available. And so we're consistently applying for grants to move the program forward. What you see on the right, is a map that shows you our 800-mile corridor. We have about 14 stations along this alignment. The blue represents phase 1 that we are focused on, San Francisco to Los Angeles. That's the 520 miles getting all the way to Anaheim. And then phase 2 is connecting into Sacramento and San Diego in yellow. It extends another 300 miles after phase 1. Next slide, please. So, this is straight hot off the press. This is from our presentation earlier today. We are supposed to provide a project update report to the legislature on March 1st. So this was highlights from what our CEO updated our board earlier today in that meeting, board meeting earlier today. So the project continues to advance. We have 422 miles cleared environmentally, and our goal is to clear 465 miles once we have the Palmdale to Burbank EIS approved with board approval that we plan to take to the board at the end of 2023. Like I said, we have 119 miles in construction. And we are committed to getting to Merced to Bakersfield. And so we are advancing the design into Merced and Bakersfield. And like I said, Denix is going to talk to you about efforts to get into Merced. So with that, we will have 171 miles in construction or advanced in design. And when we say advanced design, it means engineering, right-of-way mapping, utility location, so on and so forth. Then some of our targets, we plan to do all of this, take it to about a 30% configuration footprint sometime by the end of 2023. And then lastly, we are working on the stations. Meg Cederroth, our planning and sustainability director, is also heading up the station effect, has been reaching out and doing a lot of outreach for all the stations that we have in our valley. Next slide. So here are some of the specific items that I wanted to highlight for you on the progress they were making on 119, right? And this slide compares to where we were a couple of years ago. And in spite of the pandemic, we still making progress. We have made tremendous strides in keeping the project moving forward. We have completed design for the 119 miles. 73% of the guideway and structures are complete. We have a huge amount of utilities that we are relocating, especially as we go through downtown Fresno. We have 75% of the utilities in progress or completed. Right away has always been a challenge and a struggle for all projects, and we are almost there. We have a 96% complete with all the right-of-way acquired. This Tuesday we had a big media event in Fresno. We were very proud of the fact that we were able to create 10,000 labor jobs, and we reached that milestone this month. And we had, great participation from our partners in the federal government who came down to celebrate that milestone with us. The other big milestone that we're going to achieve this year is we're going to complete the first construction package in CP4. That's 22 miles all the way down south from 1 mile north of the Tulare-Kern County line all the way to past the city of Bosco, to give you a sense of where this package is. We're going to be substantially complete with CP4 by quarter 2, summer of 2023. And then CP1, which goes through through downtown Fresno, and then CP23, which is about 60 miles long. We're targeting completion somewhere in 2026. Next slide. So here are some of the program goals, again, from our project update report that was presented earlier today. We are targeting our tracking systems RFQ to be out in 2023. Our board just approved us to go and put out that package today. Our train set procurement, we plan to start doing that in 2024. We're talking about getting double track electrified test track around the 2028 timeline, and then our plan is to have passenger service between Merced and Bakersfield in the 2030, 2033 range, depending on evaluation of all the risks that we put together. And then overall for the statewide progress, we're looking at full environmental clearance of all 500 miles somewhere around in the 2025 period. And then advancing design, all segments from San Francisco, Anaheim, advancing 30% design to prepare for pre-construction. And this is, again, is based on availability of funding. Now, we have been very clear in this update report that we're putting out that we will need a partner with the federal government to fully fund all of these goals that we have outlined. Next slide. So the other thing, we talked a little bit about the stations, and we've been doing a lot of outreach. We've had meetings in Merced, talk about the intermodal station over there. We're also meeting with Fresno, Kingston, Tulare, and Bakersfield to talk about the stations and how we bring, develop a signature station for the communities in those areas. So we did put out a procurement, and we've got a contract awarded in October of last year for our Central Valley design of the stations. Foster Partners and Arab joint venture, we awarded that there. And the first thing that they're going to do now is that to come and start looking at the design, identify what we need from a right-of-way perspective, utility locations, and work with all the communities to develop something that is in line with a high-speed rail station. And so we'll interact with you and start coming out and doing further outreach as we get further into the design piece. And lastly, this is the elephant in the room for us. This is how we are funded, right? So as you all know, we got $9.95 billion in bond measure. We got an additional $2.5 billion in ARA grants in 2009. Then in 2010, we got $929 million that was taken back and then was given back to us through the new administration. And then roughly we get about $500 and $750 million per year through cap and trade. That goes all the way to 2030. So, there is no permanent funding program for the high-speed rail nationally or in California. And right now, funding currently directed to the project is estimated somewhere around the $25 billion range. So when we put out our business plan in 2022, we indicated that additional federal funds would be needed to complete the Merced to Bakersfield segment. And we did set a target in there of about $8 billion that will be awarded from the bipartisan infrastructure law. Now, there are a lot of programs that we are targeting. We did have an application for the mega grant that we were not successful on, but there's additional years of the mega grant, and then we are planning to do the state federal partnership program, which has about $12 billion that we are proposing to target for competitive grants. So if we get that target, we would have about $33 billion, which would be directed to the program that will allow us to then complete the Merced to Bakersfield section. So we have been consulting with FRA on this. In the light of cost estimate, the authority is proposing to construct Merced to Bakersfield in phases. And we are outlining what those phases are and how we propose to do that in our program update report that is going to go to the legislature March 1st of this year. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Denix that walks you through some of the specific items that we're doing in Merced, and then I'll be happy to take any questions after Denix's presentation.
Okay, thank you, Garth.
Good afternoon, Chair and Directors. My name is Denix Anbia. I'm the Senior Project Manager for the Merced to Madera segment here at the Authority. In short, we call this segment M2M. I will quickly go through some details of this segment. Next slide, please. This segment, the M2M segment, goes from the north end of CP1, which is the Avenue 19 in Madera, to Gerard Avenue in Merced. Roughly, that's about 33.9 miles. In a minute, I'll explain why it didn't go all the way to Merced Station. Back in August of last year, our board authorized us to award the design contract to Stantec Consulting Services. Our current contract with Stantec includes design up to finalizing the project footprint. Here at the authority, we call this stage 3. During this stage, we not only finalize the footprint of the project, but also complete 100% design of the utility relocations. So at the completion of stage 3, we can confidently start the right-of-way acquisition process and also actually the utility relocations. Our contract with Stantec has an option to use them for stage 4 also. If we exercise that option, Stantec will also go through the final design and prepare the construction-ready package for us. Next slide, please. Here are some details of the scope of work in stage 3. The main line and the civil works will be designed to a minimum of 30%. Structures type selection will be done. Initiate the design coordination with public agencies. We've already met with both the counties and also with the city of Chowchilla. We are planning to meet with city of Merced in about a couple of weeks. This project will impact facilities of about 25 third parties, such as utility companies, irrigation districts, and public agencies. We've already reached out to them to identify the existing facilities that will be impacting. We have already met with some of them. For example, we already met with PG&E, AT&T, and Chowchilla Water Districts, and so on. As we develop the utility design, we will coordinate with all these third parties and reach agreements with them. We will review the environmental project footprint and the required mitigations. We will also prepare a right-of-way mapping so that we can start the acquisition at the completion of stage 3. We expect the stage 3 to be completed by the end of 2024. Next slide, please. Now let me explain why the contract didn't cover all the way to Merced Station. Back in 2012, the EIR-EIS was completed for the Merced to Fresno section. At that time, a station at the ground level was approved at the Martin Luther King Jr. Way. Subsequently, the city of Merced proposed the station be relocated between O Street and R Streets to better align with the local and regional transportation. Also, Senate Bill 198, enacted last year, required a new combined station in downtown Merced and connections to Amtrak San Joaquin's and the Altamont Corridor Express. Next slide, please. So currently the authority is evaluating the relocation of the station from Martin Luther King Jr. Way to R Street. We had two community meetings, one back in October of last year and one in January of this year. The new proposed station would have the same urban setting. However, this will be an elevated station. That would change how we build and operate the station. So the authority is currently studying the environmental effects of the new proposed station. Some benefits of this new station or the new proposed station is it'll have better connections to local buses. It'll have direct connection to ACE and the Amtrak San Joaquin's. And because it is an elevated station, there'll be parking available underneath the station. Our contract with Stantec has an option to include this segment in their contract, that is from Gerard Avenue to the new proposed station location in Merced. Once the study is complete, the authority can exercise this option and ask Stantec to complete the stage 3 design for this segment also. This segment is about 2.5 miles long. Next slide, please. Well, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Any questions for Denix and Garth?
Actually, I have two questions. My first question is for Garth. When you say that it needs to be completed as soon as possible, that's very open-ended. So could you give us a little bit more refined of an answer on what as soon as, at least in your mind, what are you thinking as soon as possible is?
Well, again, could you repeat that question?
So you had mentioned that it needs to be completed as soon as possible. To me, as soon as possible is very open-ended. And so I'm asking you for your opinion on like, can you, obviously we're not going to hold you to it, but what do you think? I mean, as soon as possible to me is like in the year or two. As soon as possible to you might be 10 or 15 years.
So I'm guessing you're talking about initially when I said our mission is to initiate high-speed rail as soon as possible.
Yes, exactly.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's a good question, and the way we have approached this is the largest infrastructure project that we are undertaking in the history of the United States, right? The building of an 800-mile corridor, and when we say we want to initiate high-speed rail service, to me that initiation of high-speed service is what we are calling right now our first operating segment between Merced to Bakersfield. Right, and the timeline that I provided for that based on our latest project update report was in the timeline of the end of the decade, 2030 to 2033. That was the timeline that we have established. There's a lot of moving parts right here, including funding that we talked about and how we need to have a federal partner to allow us to do some of these things. So overall, based on the plans that we put forward and how we'll receive the funding and what grants we are targeting, we believe we'll be able to get this initial operating system on the ground somewhere in that timeline between 2020 and 2033 rather.
Perfect, thank you. And then my second question is, do you have any concerns that your environmental clearance will expire? I know in other things, when we do CEQA or NEPA, those things, you don't just get to do it and then it's good forever. Like, those deals have to be updated or have the possibility to expire. I know that part of I think the initial bond measure required that all 500 miles have environmental clearance by a certain point. That stuff that was done on the front end, do you have concerns that that environmental clearance will expire?
This is typical of all mega projects. We have done this in the 119 miles. We do have a baseline environmental document, but as we get further into design, as we have learned over the 119 miles, there are some modifications that get done, and then we do a re-examination to study the changes like we are doing right now in Merced with the station. Initial concept was to go to Martin Luther King. We're working with the community. We have identified that the intermodal station further north is the best approach. So we are now studying that environmentally to ensure we can clear that. And that's typically how these projects are done. So yes, as time passes, as decisions are made based on community input, some changes do happen, and when those happen, we'll address them in a reevaluation, reexamination as appropriate.
All right, thank you.
Director Pedroza.
Thanks. I didn't get the part. Can you remind me again what advanced design means?
Well, I'll take a stab at this, right? So when we went to construction on the initial CPs, right, we had only a 15% design, and we went into construction, and there's a lot of lessons learned, and we've been very vocal about accepting the decisions that were made and the resulting lessons that we have learned from going in early. There were issues with utility relocations, there was issues with right-of-way acquisition. And so when we are looking at when we say advanced design, we're trying to take design to a 30% configuration footprint. We're trying to understand all the utilities that are involved, the needs for right-of-way, and so we can establish all the constraints so that we have a path forward to clear that before we get to construction. So our goal is to keep all options open as we go to our procurement methodology in the future. But some of the things that we are going to do is trying to create smaller packages that we can get as soon as possible. So there's a segment that we can clear the utilities by the right of way, then we should be able to go to construction. but we don't want to go and repeat some of the lessons that we've learned through the 119, where we get into an area where we are unable to move the utilities in the time we need, and the contractor then is continuing to be delayed. So we want to get clarity on what our constraints are and then move forward. So that advanced design does give an ability to do that.
And I appreciate the response, but again, it goes back to the as soon as possible thing. So, I mean, if we already know the problems, is it just because of the different environments that we're looking at? Or, I mean, the as soon as possible, it's like what Director Silvera said, is that a year, 2 years, 10 years, 15 years? That's a different for everything. And so you have these dates on there to where you want to get something done. Is there the plan in place now?
Right. So the dates that we provided with the targets of 2030 and 2033, right? That's the overall program goal. Now, Dennis in his presentation talked about getting the 30% configuration, but Dennis, I believe it was 2024.
Right. So the design phase that we are in, we call it stage 3, which is the preliminary design. Our goal is to complete that in 2 years, which is roughly the end of 2024. And then we start the final design, which will last probably another 2 years. So those dates are kind of there, and we are trying to even expedite it even sooner than that. But contractually, that's what we have, 2 more years for the stage 3, which is the initial design or preliminary design, and then another 2 more years for the final design.
And just to add to that, this is no different than how Caltrans does projects today, right? They have what they call a P&ED, where they do a project report and environmental document phase, and then from there, that's approximately a 30% design. They'll jump to right-of-way acquisition, utility relocations, and when they do that, they use the design bid build model a lot, and then they go to construction. Now we are trying to keep all our options open. So we'll first get to 30%. We'll understand the utilities, the right-of-way constraints. And when I say as soon as possible, it does, we want to actually get to construction as soon as physically possible. Now, that means that all of the things that we do in trying to get there are consistent with the ultimate goal of getting an operating segment in 2030. Right? So as opposed to waiting till we get, say, for example, 20 miles before going to construction, if I can get a 10-mile section cleared, then we want to go to construction in that 10-mile section. That's why we say as soon as possible. It's not because we don't have a schedule. It's just trying to leverage the availability, because sometimes right-of-way takes, one parcel could impact our ability to go to construction. So we want to make sure we have clarity on the constraints. So once we are in construction, we can complete construction, and so it's a benefit for all the community that we are not in construction for a prolonged period of time, and we can go in, complete it, and move out. And so the temporary disruption to construction is minimized.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Any question? Director Pereira.
Hello. What could you kind of just update us on the track that will be going through the Pacheco Pass? Just is that designed yet, or is there a plan? Just kind of, people ask about that all the time.
Yeah, and, right now, our focus and the focus of the legislature is most set to Bakersfield. We have the resources we need to do the 119. And will require federal support to get us from Bakersfield to Merced. Now, while we in the past had packages that we helped to do, advanced packages like we did in electrification in the Bay Area and Los Angeles Union Station that we're going to use into LA, we are now solely focused on Bakersfield to Merced. And as and when money comes available through our federal partners, we will then start thinking about going and moving design. And there is a plan, and once we put up a project update report, I am happy to share that entire plan with you once that becomes available on how we are planning and what activities we are planning to do and when to enable us to get to that 2023 and beyond. or 2033 and beyond, I would say.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. How many dollars have been spent so far, and then how many are currently encumbered?
Well, I think so. Overall, we have about $25 billion in the program now. I can have those numbers sent to you. It's part of our reporting to FNA every month. So off the top of my head, I don't know what those numbers are, but I can definitely pull those numbers up and send it to you.
Okay, and then what do you think for the 119 miles, what % complete do you consider it to be?
So the 119 miles in construction is for the civil infrastructure piece, right? So all of the guideway would be complete. All of the grade separations would be complete. For example, your neighboring county in Madera, right? We have done, the east-west grade separations. We are done with, I think so. The number is about 9 grade separations, and we have just 2 left in Madera. So in Madera, all of those grade separations will be done. Once all those grade separations are done, and our guideway is done with the final lift of the subballast, that's what we call completion. Our next tracking system contractor, when they come in, they will complete the ballast and put the track and do the electrification and do the OCS poles and all of that. And that contract is still outstanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Director Yanes?
Yeah, hi, Garth. So I have a question. It's more of an operational question probably than a design phase, so I don't know if you can help me with it. But and I'm new to this board. Question regarding the local jurisdictions for law enforcement that build these large parking structures. Is that something the local jurisdictions will be responsible for, or is the CHP planning to expand or build an agency? What's the plan for that?
That's a very good question, because we've had some similar questions from other jurisdictions too. As we build it, we are utilizing CHP to do a lot of the support we need. But as we get into operations, we're going to have some kinds of agreements with all the local jurisdictions to see what kind of support in terms of either fire. Those are conversations that we'll definitely have to see how do we utilize the resources that are available locally to help support the program, and that is definitely something for the future as we get closer to operations that we will start having those conversations.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Garth, Denix, Tony, thank you for your presentation. Thank you, as always, for your partnership and being good partners, and thank you for your work on this very challenging project. So, see you guys soon. We'll be in touch, and again, thank you for your continued good partnership and good work.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the time. Yeah.
Right. Have a good day, you guys. All right. High-speed rail update to Caltrans report. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it on? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Chair Serrato. Good afternoon, directors. I'm glad to be here, and it's nice to meet some of the new board members as well. I'm here, as you know, I didn't bring my second partner here, Marlon. I needed to give him a break. He said, Dennis, you need to go and show your face in front of MCAG. It's been a while. So I'm here now. So, oh, there you are, Marlon. So he sent me down this time, and he can join virtual. Anyways, I do want to take this opportunity to update you on a couple items, and of course, if we have time, we'll pass it on to Marlon since he's joined us as well. One of the things I did want to mention is I hope that Merced County and the cities that were affected by the storms several weeks ago, I hope you guys are recovering. I know that a lot of the Merced area is in the news, and we've seen that, and some of our roadways here were flooded. I appreciate everyone's patience with us, and especially in the closures that we've had on our state routes. But we did work hard to make sure that we get these opened up as soon as possible and make sure they're safe for the traveling public. I did have the opportunity to have our Secretary, Tokso Mishakan, come down to our district in San Joaquin County, along with Director Tavares, to come and visit one of our sites and talk about Caltrans' response to the storms. And there's a video that just was released last week. I will share that through Stacy, so you can share it to the rest of the board members of our efforts of this last storm. I know that even up in our snow area, we haven't seen the amount of snow that we've received. We received to date over 25 feet of snow in some areas, and half of that's remaining, which is good. We need to keep that cold weather. We need to keep that snow up there to help with our drought. So again, I just really appreciate the patience and the communication we've been having with all of you. Speaking of which, I know that a lot of the directors know how to get a hold of me, and I do appreciate that. And of course, if you ever need anything, and if you can't get a hold of me, Stacy will get a hold of me. I really appreciate Stacy and our partnership and communication we've had over the years. I'd like to continue and that partnership, and we continue to meet. And I'm going to get to see her tomorrow again in our ESC Steering Committee meeting. I also want to just update you all on the Clean California Community Days. You probably heard this from Marlon in the past. Additional information on when this all going to happen. This is a statewide effort, and it's not just with Caltrans, and this is my plea to all of you and all the communities and the cities and the counties to help participate, not just to pick up litter, but also to get the awareness out to the general public about the pride of keeping California clean. So it's not just our state right away. We'll be partnering, I hope, with all of you, with encouraging the communities and neighborhoods to sign up from the days between March 17th to the 27th. And we now have a portal that's open to the public where you can sign up of when you're going to participate, where you're going to participate, and if you need tools such as bags and other litter cleanup kits, we're willing to help provide that to the communities. So we're looking forward to that partnership. I do have a one-page flyer that has a link to the site. Again, I will send it through Stacy or whoever the appropriate person I need to send it out to get it out to all of you. And I really look forward to this great event. And March 25th, statewide again, there will be some big events happening in each of the districts. And I know that the governor is going to try to get out to attend as much events as he can across the state. You never know. He may be lucky to come back down to Merced and celebrate one of the organized events that you guys may have. So looking forward to participation, not just for litter pickups, tree plantings, disposal, dump events, adopt the highway cleanups, and other community beautification events in your neighborhood. So please, again, I encourage all of you. We'll send this out to all of you so you can please spread the word out to your communities. The other update on Clean California, I know we mentioned this before, the $100 million second local beautification grant application is out. The request for application just came out a couple of days ago, February 14th, Valentine's Day, and all our local partners have until April 28th of this year to submit all your applications. I offer my staff, if you have any other new applications you want to provide through the city or the county, especially if it's within our state routes that you would like to help improve, my staff is available to help strengthen and make these applications competitive for the $100 million. So just want to throw that out there and making sure that you know you can reach out to me and my staff for any assistance you may need. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and again, this is maybe for the new board members, I hope that you receive my quarterly letter with all the activities that we're doing in your county, whether it's traffic operations investigations, capital projects that we're working on, safety investigations as well, and even our maintenance activities. So you should be getting letters through my office with a lot of the information and status of some outstanding projects that you may be interested in your community. So please take a look at that. Of course, if there's any questions through that, you have Marlon, myself, to follow up any questions, and of course through Stacy. I would like to just probably make one more, not ask, but an offer to MCAG, and this is for any state or federal funding grant applications. This is something that when the director came to visit me last week, he wanted to make sure that you all know that before you submit your applications for state funding grants, please work with me and my team to kind of help, again, making sure it's aligned with the state priorities, federal priorities, and make that project as competitive as possible, right? With all these competitive grants. And again, I'm throwing this out there. I know that Stacy's even making a trip to my district on next week, Tuesday. So thank you, Stacy and Elizabeth, for being willing to come up here. And Marlon's going to be there, and my team is to really talk about those opportunities. So I just want to make sure you're all aware of that, and I really appreciate the time. And I will ask Marlon if I could, Mr. Chair, to see if he has any quick updates.
Of course, Dennis. Marlon.
Sure. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board members. Dennis covered a lot, so I won't talk too much, but briefly, I do have some action items from Director Espinosa. I know I was supposed to get back to you regarding Girard Avenue 59. We have begun preliminary design for that project this past winter, and we are still on track for construction, and that's estimated in spring of 2025. So we'll be able to give any particular project updates you need in the meantime. And then on Henry Miller, I do need to get the plans to you as you requested. So I'll be in touch with you, Supervisor.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. That concludes my updates. Thank you.
Dr. McDaniel.
Yeah, thank you, Marlon, Dennis. Dennis, thank you for being here. Marlon, you could have made the trip, but I just want to touch base on 99, the maintenance construction that's going on out there. You know, our constituents, that's what we hear a lot of through Atwater and Merced. I just want to, you know, being on the Finish 99 group as well, is there any chance, and I know you were going to look into it further, are we able to go to 6 lanes on any portion of this construction that we're doing? I know you were going to look into it because I think Tulare County actually added that 3rd lane because of the way we had to reroute some of the traffic, and we were able to leave some of that in there. I was just hoping that that's going to be an opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for that follow-up question, Director McDaniel. I did look at that with my team internally to see what we've designed out there and what we're constructing out there. I like to say that we did fully put 6 lanes of structural segment out there. We do in some sections, but not completely. So there's going to be some additional work that needs to happen to make it full 6 lanes. But we will be striping back to 4 lanes when we're done with both the Atwater and the Merced rehab project. So there's good news in that sense that some of that was fully constructed, which would be less construction and dollars that would be needed. And then, of course, there was an opportunity last state funding. If money so happened to fall down the sky, what would it take? And so we did go through that effort. Unfortunately, the money didn't fall out of the sky, and we were hoping for that. But we were ready if it did, and we'd be more willing if another opportunity comes around to help expedite that and get the full 6 lanes through.
Right, because I can see where the pinch points are on the bridges for sure through the
Yes.
Merced area, but I could see where we could extend it, you know, through Atwater at least up into approaching into Merced.
Right.
Just keep that still under consideration because I saw that maybe the striping opportunity would give us that chance.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to go back to the last time I was here, and Director Silvera asked me, hey, when are you going to bring your director down to MCAG? I haven't forgotten that. As a matter of fact, when I did see Director Tavares last week, I did give him a heads up. My recommendation is, and through Stacy, if you can get a letter out to him requesting for his presence for a day, do a field tour, and then however else you want him to see the corridor, he's more than willing to do it. You need to just do it in advance. He's willing. I just want you to know. I've been plugging in his ear. I say, we need you down here. And he's ready. We need to get it in his calendar in a couple months if you want to get him sooner So that would be my recommendation.
And then we could even give him the tour of the only inland port here in the San Joaquin Valley.
I did mention that to him, and he's very interested to see that, actually. And as much as I like to bring Mike Keever, who's our Chief Deputy Director, who sat in the summit, he was very interested to see it, but they have to tag team, right? You all can't be together when one's out there. But if we can get our director down here and see the inland port, please do so. And you have my full support to help push to make that happen and get it in his calendar.
Okay, Director Silvera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marlon, I had followed up with you, and I think maybe our wires got crossed. This was on Highway 59 in the city limits of Merced, from basically 99 to from the entrance of the city on the south side to Highway 99. The road is in really bad shape, and I know you were going to look at. You thought maybe there was a maintenance agreement with the city of Merced on that section. I don't know. It's just I drive it every day. It's bad and getting worse. So if we can get some follow up on that. I know you thought maybe it was debris. It wasn't a debris issue. It was literally the road's falling apart issue. And then the other thing that I have for you guys on the reconstruction work on 99, I just know this happened. We had a meeting on Monday, and when folks are coming in on either side on 99, whether they're heading north or south, what they don't know is like if there's some kind of signage that tells them if you actually need to get off in Merced, you need to stay in the slow lane, right? Stay in the right-hand lane. This particular person didn't know that and ended up having to drive all the way through Merced, get to a point where he could turn around and come back to be able to make a meeting. And I'm guessing if that happened to him, that probably happens to a lot of people. So I don't know what could be done with that. I know you guys got a lot of signage out there, but if you could somehow on that signage just remind folks that if you do need to get off at one of those exits, you need to stay in the right-hand lane. The left-hand lane is not going to allow you to get off, and not for a long time. And then maybe that money falling out of the sky thing, we ought to talk to the high-speed rail guys. They're going to come in and do some massive projects, and they seem to have a lot of money. We ought to try to tap into some of their money to help with those widening of the bridges on 99. Just a thought.
If I could respond to some of his comments, we'll definitely look at the State Route 59 in those sections. If they're bad, we definitely either get our maintenance folks to do a quick fix and then follow it with a rehab project. That's normally what we do, but thanks for bringing that to our attention. It's not just debris, it's pavement failing. Just the storms really hit hard our roadways. On the 99 construction that's going on out there, the signage, I'm aware of that issue. I thought we took care of it, but I'm going to have to tell you, as of Monday, I had a meeting and it wasn't. So. Okay, maybe that sign wasn't put in the right place for them to see it. I'll definitely follow up because I know we've been working hard to address some of the traveling public's concerns, but we'll definitely follow up again.
If I could, Mr. Chair, that it was an early issue, and so something must have changed because it hadn't been an issue for some time. So on Monday, the same meeting that I was with Director Silvera was the first time since the initial issue that I had heard it again. So I don't know if in the shifting of where the work was being done, if a sign got moved or what have you. And I also just wanted to mention that something that we haven't talked much at this board, but I've had some conversations with Marlon, and maybe we can touch base tomorrow in our meeting or next week when I'm in the office, is looking at Highway 59 south of 99 all the way to 152, maybe not all the way to 152, but really look at the full corridor of South 59, both for the maintenance issues that are within the city limits, but also, maybe some adaptation plan, something to happen around the bridge. I know that there's the project at the Mariposa Creek, but also even maybe looking at those safety issues. That's a pretty dangerous corridor for folks that travel. And so there's been some discussion years ago about passing lanes or any kind of other safety improvements that could be made there. So just having a holistic conversation around that 59 south from 99 to 152.
Definitely would appreciate that. Let's have that discussion. Thank you.
Director Nelson.
Dennis, it's a pleasure meeting you today. I'll give you some kudos. I really appreciated your update. I've asked the city manager to put that, at least cherry pick out the Atwater related items and get them on the city website and social media so our residents know what's going on, because usually it's they're kind of clueless about it, you know, so thank you.
Thank you, Director.
All right, Director Espinosa.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlon, and yourself as well, too, for, like I said, trying to address all the other issues. And I know that, Marlon, you sent me the email on the 33 and the Harry Miller signal. So I know that it says the environmental phase should be done by spring, and hopefully construction will start on the fall. So thank you. Also, I heard a complaint about a sign that was probably run over the northbound 99 Planada sign pointing to Planada. I think somebody ran it over, and it took us 2 years to get those signs, so hopefully that can be replaced. Thank you for Supervisor Silvera for bringing up the Highway 59 into Merced. I know you have to drive in, so like you said. Also, the Planada as well, westbound as you come into Planada, I've heard complaints about the speeding. So I know there's a speeding sign going out, but as you come in, I think it needs to be lowered to 35 at least miles per hour, because, you know, there's a lot of cross traffic there. We're seeking that Saturday on Highway 140 crossing the Jayhawk system there. So hopefully we could put a sign there as well. And also Livingston at the southbound off ramp on Winter Parkway too. There's a fire there, and then there's still a lot of dead brush there off the exit. So it's been about 5 to 6 months that we've been addressing it. So thank you very much.
Hey, Director Pereira.
Well, I thanked Dennis before the meeting for were some issues out on North 59, and Caltrans responded very quickly, and I appreciated that. I just got a text. It's actually, I think, in Supervisor Silvera's district, but one of the companies I do business with, fellows driving from Los Banos to Stevenson. And so between Los Banos and then the 165-140 intersection, he said there's 16 potholes that are growing. You know, they were kind of small and you could miss them easy, he said, but they're growing and nobody's been out there. And then I want to thank you for, you know, your team really did well through the storm and really did good. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Director Pereira, and then also Director Espinosa. Definitely between me and Marlon, we have these written down. We definitely will follow up on it, especially the ones that are safety concerns, that like these 16 potholes. If that's growing, we need to get out there right away to get those fixed. So we'll definitely start addressing that when I get back to the office.
All right, anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Thank you both, as always. Okay if I reach out to you offline about potential traffic flow issues on 13th Street in the city of Merced? We can take it offline, but
okay.
I appreciate you guys, as always. So
Thank you, Mr.
again.
Chair. Thank you, directors.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
All right, takes us to informational items. Item 8. Are there any items on the informational item list that anyone would like to pull for separate discussion or consideration? Okay, seeing none, no action necessary on the informational items, informational purposes only. Takes us to the item 9, which is the consent calendar. Any discussion here? Any items to pull for separate consideration or a motion? Okay, motion from Vice Chair Pedroso. Second from Director Yanez. I think with Director Moran now joining us online, we'll need a roll call vote.
That's correct.
All right, Mary Michael?
Director Espinosa?
Yes.
Director Hoag?
Yes.
Director Yanez?
Yes.
Director McDaniel?
Darren.
Director McDaniel?
Aye.
Director Moran?
Aye.
Director Nagy?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Yes.
Director Pereira?
Aye.
Director Silvera?
Aye.
Director Pedroso?
Yes.
Chair Serrato?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mary Michael. Item 10, Merced County Association of Governments action items. 10A, Mauricio Torres, welcome. This is the resolution regarding the 2023-24 findings of fact regarding the unmet transit needs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mauricio Torres, Associate Planner with MCAG, for those of you who don't know me. We're here to talk about, presentation.
Transit, baby.
Transit.
to your right there, so that you could put that down if you like.
Perfect, thank you.
So how are you doing?
Yeah. How's your weekend?
That's my idea.
Great.
Oopsie.
Got any plans for next weekend?
You can cover the.
I mean, if we don't need the slideshow, I can cover it without it. Basically, you know, the Transportation Development Act provides two major sources of funding for public transportation: the local transportation fund and the straight LTF, as you may know it, and the State Transit Assistance Fund (STA). These funds are developed. These funds are for the development and support of public transportation needs that exist in California and are allocated to each county based on population, taxable sales tax, and transit performance. So some counties have a provision to use these funds for non-transit uses if certain conditions are met, and before using those funds for anything not directly related to public transit, transportation services, MCAG needs to annually consult with the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council, the SSTAC, to identify the transit needs of the jurisdiction, including identifying unmet transit needs and those that are reasonable to meet. The way the unmet transit needs are identified is through citizen participation process, where the SSTAC receives public comment from those who are transit dependent. By law, we are required to hold at least one public hearing to receive comment. MCAG has always gone above and beyond to receive comments. We try to do more than the minimum. We did this year, we held 5 public hearings, 2 in Merced, 2 in Dos Palos, and 1 virtual one. In addition to that, we solicit comments via email. We'll take comments by email, phone, mail, even online. We have an online service, a dedicated webpage, and we also monitor our social media pages for any comments that could be related to the unmet transit needs. This year we received 36 comments. Out of those 36 comments, 8 of them were potential unmet transit needs that were analyzed by the SSTAC. The others were determined to be operational issues that were sent over to the bus to be addressed by the transit agency. So the official MCAG adopted definition of an unmet transit need is an inadequacy in the existing public transit service for persons recognized as transit dependent in Merced County. An inadequacy in the public transit service could cover broad things. However, the SSTAC focuses on comments that are identified locations in the county that do not have transit service at all, or it's unavailable at times when it's needed for essential life, work, and school activities. Reasonable to meet, if you look on page 79, these definitions are explained in detail. What are those requirements? So the SSTAC, as I mentioned before, out of the 36 comments, 8 were recognized. They analyzed 36 comments, 8 were considered by the SSTAC to be potential unmet transit needs. Again, and they've put those against our definitions of reasonable, of those definitions adopted by this board. So the SSTAC's recommendation is that there is an unmet need to provide earlier service to Planada on the weekdays. Currently, the Planada bus deadheads to Planada and starts service in Planada. We now realize there are folks in Merced that want to get to Planada first thing in the morning. And the SSTAC considered the cost of extending the service, and the cost is within the funding requirements. It would not cause the fare box ratio to go below the minimum of 15%, because we're already paying for that bus service to for the bus to head to Planada. The other 3 that were unmet transit needs but not reasonable to meet were service on holidays that the bus currently does not operate. The SSTAC analyzed that against other agencies of similar size, and for the most part, we either provide more service, we provide equal or to more service than others, but even on those days that we do provide service, the ridership is low. We also looked at, the SSTAC also looked at service to Snelling. They determined that it was not reasonable to meet, because, you know, anytime we start new service, if the demand is not there, then it doesn't justify the cost, and that could affect the fare box ratio. And so what they recommended is that we do more community outreach in Snelling to determine what would be a adequate service for Snelling. You know, instead of just going in there and saying, hey, we're going to provide transit service from 8 to 5 when nobody needs it. The third one was later service past 8:55. They also believe that, you know, it's not cost effective at the time with everybody just coming back from the pandemic and ridership increasing. They believe that the ridership is not there, but maybe at a later time it is something that would be there. The others, you know, were unmet. They were considered not and were found to be not unmet transit needs. Were services west of Winton Way near Cypress Avenue in Winton. Most of the area is within 3/4 of a mile of an existing bus stop. So if people cannot walk those 3/4 of a mile, they would qualify for our paratransit service, and therefore would get curb-to-curb service. And the other things considered were providing full service on the 6 holidays that we currently operate on a reduced service. Again, we have low ridership already. Earlier service before 6:30. Ridership, again, you know, not very many people are riding. And then there was a comment about service between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. So previous unmet needs that were addressed in 2022 was extended service to North Merced. As of August 22, we have, the transit agency has made changes to their M4 route to provide service north of Merced College to Bellevue Road. And then once the North Merced Transit Hub is completed, that will be the official stop. The other unmet transit need was additional service to Planada. Prior to this being implemented between 7:30 and 1:30, there was only one trip there was no trips available between Merced and Planada between 7:30 and 1:30. 3 trips were added to get people back to Planada in a timely manner. So today we are asking the board to adopt resolution number 2023-2-1601 with the finding of fact that there are unmet transit needs, including needs that are reasonable to meet for fiscal year 2023-24 as recommended by the SSTAC, and approve the unmet transit needs fiscal year 2023 analysis and recommendation report. Once approved, if approved, by the MCAG board, then we will work with the transit agency to get that service started. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mauricio. Would you like a peppermint bark Ghirardelli chocolate square?
No, thank you. I'm trying to watch what I eat right now.
All right. Questions, comments? Anybody? Okay, and he caught us at the right time when everybody's enjoying some Ghirardelli chocolates. So appreciate it. Good present. Thanks for the presentation, especially under extremely difficult circumstances, not having the PowerPoint. Any discussion on the part of the board or a motion?
I just have one question. I know in the past we had an unmet transit need, and it was one person that we kind of developed a route for, and this is a few years ago, but we're not doing that this time, are we? Okay.
The only change is more early bus service from Merced to Planada.
Okay, thanks.
And then all the other perceived unmet needs are not deemed not reasonable. Yeah, deemed unreasonable to meet.
So the one that was made reasonable was we're already going there. So the bus the bus service will start in Merced instead of deadheading early in the morning to deadheading, meaning nobody rides the bus. It's out of service.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Questions, comments, discussion, or a motion?
Rodrigo?
Move to approve.
Planada.
Okay, motion from Director Hoag. Second from Vice Chair Pedroso. Mary Michael.
And just for the record, we don't have any hands raised online.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Director Espinoza?
Big yes.
Director Hoag?
Yes.
Director Yanez?
Yes.
Director McDaniel? Aye. Director Moran?
Aye.
Director Nagy?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Yes.
Director Pereira?
Aye.
Director Silvera?
Aye.
Director Pedroso?
Yes.
Chair Serrato?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Michael. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mauricio. All right, Ty, your turn. This takes us to item 10B, which is the 2023 FTIP Amendment number 2.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, directors. So back in October, with $3 million available to program to like CMAQ eligible projects, this board authorized staff to release the call for projects. So there were 8 applications that were submitted by the member jurisdictions. With those applications, staff convened like a CMAQ committee made up of a member from each jurisdiction, a member from Caltrans, and an MCAG staff person to evaluate, score, and make the recommendation to this board. So the committee did recommend fully programming the first 4 applications, the top 4 ranked applications for full programming.
Thanks, sir. And that's the City of Atwater for signal synchronization, County for an EV charging station, and then Atwater Livingston both for pedestrian improvements.
That's correct. With the City of Atwater, they were just only requesting construction only, so no design. They already started design of that.
All right. Any questions for Ty? Questions, comments for the FTIP amendment for the 4 CMAQ projects?
I got a question.
Go ahead, Director Silvera.
Ty, was there any consideration to, I noticed Atwater has 2 projects funded. Gustine had 2 on there, but they didn't get any of their projects funded. Was there any consideration into kind of spreading the wealth like countywide, or is it strictly by scoring totals?
It's strictly by scoring totals. There were like several scoring categories that were like basically defined by like the feds and the state, right, with the usage of CMAQ funding. So one of them is like cost effectiveness. CMAQ is supposed to like fund highly cost-effective projects. There's a threshold there. This board has actually committed to like using 20% of our funding towards highly cost-effective projects. So the first 2 are considered highly cost-effective projects, the signal synchronization and the EV charging stations. And then there were other categories that were evaluated as well. And basically, the top 4 ranked ones were selected based upon their scores.
Okay, and then so that it works out to 2.866 million. What will happen to the additional money? Would it go back in for the next year's?
Yes, it's not next year's. So it'll go into the pot that will be available soon. We'll do another call for projects. I'm expecting that to be like the summer, because this region also received a new funding or revenue source. It's so that's going to be included with the CMAQ remaining balance when we request the board to authorize another call for projects.
And will the projects that were submitted in this round, will they get a few extra points since they're already in the queue, or does it start from 0 again?
It would start from 0. They could reapply.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nobody asked you, Darren.
All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none. Additional discussion or a motion? Motion from Director McDaniel, second from Director Espinosa. Mary Michael, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just for the record, there are no hands raised online. Director Espinosa?
Yes.
Director Hogue?
Yes.
Director Yanez?
Yes.
Director McDaniel?
Aye.
Director Moran?
Yes.
Director Nagy?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Yes.
Director Pereira?
Nay.
Director Silvera?
Nay.
Director Pedroso?
Yes.
Chair Serrato?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Congratulations to the City of Atwater, in particular. Good project. Yeah, next year we all got to do better next year then to compete. All right, takes us to 10C, which is appointing a director to the 2023 Ana Maria Fuentes Scholarship Selection Committee. So,
Second that motion.
we have a motion and a second pending the presentation.
Do you want the presentation?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. just checking. I don't have to if you don't want me to. This item before you is an action item to appoint a member of the governing board to serve on the Ana Maria Fuentes Scholarship Selection Committee. This scholarship is given to a Merced County High School senior annually in memory of a former employee, Ms. Fuentes, who passed away 15 years ago. There's a bio about her in your packet if you are so interested. This scholarship is funded exclusively by donations made from staff and members of the community and is awarded to a recipient for up to 4 years pending their ongoing eligibility. The member of the governing board would join members of staff as well as a member of the Fuentes family to review applications. Time commitment is approximately a couple hours to review the applications with the committee, review the applications on your own, and then an hour of discussion with the committee, and that can be done virtually from wherever you happen to be at. That nomination would go to the governing board for official selection at your April meeting, and then the student would be selected and would be notified by May 1st, and then we would ask a volunteer, whether it's the chair or a member of that committee, to present that scholarship at whatever high school when they all do their scholarship nights. And so if you were there and would want to be involved in a photo op to present the check, we of course would welcome that. That's my presentation. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them.
If an opportunity for a photo op doesn't get the attention of board of elected
I thought
officials,
I'd throw that in there, you know.
Director McDaniel.
And I just want to say I made the nomination not tongue-in-cheek. It's Josh is a former teacher, and I think the last time he did this, he was very in-depth on it and appreciated it. That's why I wanted to nominate him for it.
Okay. So Josh, as noted in the staff report, Director McDaniel's actually done this in the past in 2015, Director Hogue in 2020, and Director Pedroza most recently in 2021. So Josh, any comments on your nomination?
I did, Mr. Chair, if I could. I know that Director Moran is from Livingston, and Ms. Fuentes was from Livingston. I know that we nominated Josh, but I just wanted to see if Director Moran had interest in it.
Yeah, Director Moran, are you interested, or is anybody else interested?
I was, but I can wait till next year. That's fine.
I could do that if Josh is busy, but I have no problem doing that as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, and Director Espinosa, you've expressed interest as well.
Thank you very much. I won't mind doing it. I can wait till next year. That's no problem. Either Josh or Jose Moran, it's up to them. It's up to you guys, so I don't want to get in the middle of it. I just want to appreciate MCAG. I know that I knew, Ana Fuentes. I knew her parents. Her mom was used to take care of my daughter when she was going to school. She used to work at one of the schools there. So they were wonderful people. I know the sister and the brother too. So it's a nice. I know everybody in our staff really enjoyed and liked her when she was working here. So she did a great job. And so I just want to thank the staff and everybody from the public for donating funds, which goes to a good cause for. And contribute to, hopefully we contribute more for future students in education. So thank you very much. That's it.
Okay. And with my motion on the floor, if Josh, it's up to you.
Okay, Stacy, go ahead.
If I could, Mr. Chair, there's nothing precluding having more than one board member on the committee.
There you go.
We just ask for one, and we love having the fact that there's actual a choice. There's so much enthusiasm, so we don't want anyone left out that feels like this is something they'd want to participate in.
Dr. Pereira?
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to McDaniel's motion and add Jose and Mr. Moran and Mr. Espinoza to the committee.
Okay. So the motion from the amendment, Director Pereira's amendment, is now Director Moran and Director Espinosa as the two.
And Director Pedroza. We're doing
all three. and Director, okay. All right, is there a second to that?
I second.
Yep. I guess,
Director Espinoza?
I didn't mind waiting until next year, but I'll be glad to do it too, along with him. So thank you.
you calling for the vote?
Yes.
With
Director Hogue?
Yes.
Director Yanez? Sorry.
Yes.
Director McDaniel? Director Moran? I believe we lost him.
I'm pretty sure he's going to say aye.
We are promoting him to panelist right now. Director Nagy?
Aye.
Director Nelson? Yes. Director Pereira?
Aye.
Director Silvera?
Aye.
Director Pedroza?
Yes.
Director Serrato?
Yes.
Director Moran?
I'm sorry, I lost my connection, but yes.
Does he know that?
Maybe.
Motion
Jose, it's
carries.
you, Josh, and Rodrigo. The three of you will be all be representatives on the scholarship committee.
Oh, wow, okay, sounds good.
Okay.
You still want to vote yes?
So we approve that approves the amendment.
That approves the amendment, but Director McDaniel's motion now requires a vote.
So I can withdraw my motion this time?
But no, because the previous motion was to amend your motion, and that was what was approved.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We approve the amendment. Now we have to, okay, we'll go around again. The amendment now being approved, now call for the question.
Thank you. Director Espinoza?
No, it's yes.
No.
Yes.
It's yes.
It's amended now.
Yeah.
It amended your motion, so the new motion is, your motion is the motion we just voted on.
The three of them.
This is the real
Yeah.
vote.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The previous vote amended the motion, so the current motion is to appoint Directors Espinoza, Moran, and Pedrozo to the Scholarship Committee.
Thoroughly confused yet?
Yeah.
Director Hogue?
Yes.
Director Yanez?
Yes.
Director McDaniel?
Aye.
Director Moran?
Aye.
Director Nagy?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Yes.
Director Pereira?
Aye.
Director Silvera?
Aye.
Director Pedrozo?
Yes.
Chair Serrato?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mary Mike. All right, congratulations to you three. Thank you for volunteering for this. Takes us to item 11A, our first discussion item, fiscal year 2023-24 budget considerations for member agencies. Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just an item to call attention to a memo that was sent, that I sent out to the jurisdictions earlier, I think this month, to summarize 3 decisions this body made at some point in the previous year that will affect our member agency budget. So none of this is new information. Just a reminder, the memo is in your board packet on page 221. I reviewed it with the TRB yesterday, and also, as I mentioned, sent the letter out by email several weeks ago. So just in summary, the 3 items that we wanted to remind jurisdictions to plan for when they're developing their local budgets for the next fiscal year are the member dues increase. You see the table that's there, and that was due to our newly procured federal contract and also the addition of the state services. For LTF, the decision that was made earlier this year by this body was that LTF, this last round that we had available, at the TRB's recommendation, the board decided to go ahead and distribute those funds to the jurisdictions for local streets and roads, but for future years, to give the jurisdictions 1 year to plan ahead to not be preparing to receive the streets and road money, but to develop policies to pool those dollars available to jurisdictions and have essentially something similar to a CMAQ program where there's going to be project nominations and funding allocation made available to the jurisdictions for their projects. So that program is still being developed. This note is just a reminder to not budget an assumption of direct allocations, formula allocations of LTF funding in 23-24. And then the third is the multi-jurisdictional housing element. As you may recall, I'm sure you do because we just awarded the contract, but MCAG stepped into a new role with the contract that the board executed or authorized me to execute to conduct the multi-jurisdictional housing element on behalf of the jurisdictions. And they, meaning the jurisdiction staff, helped develop, and this board approved a cost-sharing agreement. MCAG is not funded to, it has any kind of funding source that would allow us to contribute to a task like this. So it is completely funded by revenue received through the Regional Early Action Planning, or the REAP program, about 50% or so, the remaining balance being covered by the jurisdictions. We wanted to just make sure that the jurisdictions were planning for their remaining balance. I will say for some of you, some jurisdictions have requested to get their balance invoiced to them this fiscal year, which we're happy to do. This was really just to communicate, not to forget that that balance needed to be paid in the coming fiscal year. And I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any reminders of any of the context that went behind these decisions.
Okay. Questions for Stacy?
I send you.
Send those two guys from Caddy, Rocco and no, Bruno. I don't know. help you find your wallet. Okay. Need any action, or that was just information only?
Just information.
Okay. 11B, Mary Michael. This is an update on our Brown Act meeting requirements. Teleconferencing.
Yes. First of all, apologies to Director McDaniel and Silvera. This will be the second time this week they've heard this same presentation. They had the privilege of hearing me speak about this at their Yards Governing Board meeting earlier this week. So, here today to talk to you about the updated legislation, AB 2449. Marissa, next slide, please. As a reminder, we've been operating under the AB 361 requirements as it pertains to holding teleconferencing meetings during a state of emergency. We've been able to do that through the COVID state of emergency, but as that expires at the end of this month per the governor, we will be moving on to utilize the the allowances under AB 2449. Next slide. This legislation went into effect at the beginning of this year. It outlines ongoing options for teleconferencing for public meetings from private locations. There's always been the ability to teleconference, however, and those parameters still exist where you could be teleconferencing from other publicly noticed, publicly accessible physical locations. But this new legislation allows for essentially what we've been operating under throughout the course of the pandemic and what we're doing today. Next slide, please. So if a board member wanted to seek to participate remotely from a private teleconference location, in order to do that, you would have to, first and foremost, have at least a quorum of the body participate in a singular physical location. I'm not really worried about this body. We've been operating under these kind of general set of circumstances for a number of years. Most of you are here in the room today, and moving forward, that would allow, for example, Director Moran to continue to participate virtually like he's doing today. However, if we do this, the public must also be able to participate via a two-way teleconference option. So again, we would continue to provide a Zoom link on the front of our agendas like we've been doing. This might not seem like a big deal, but you'd be surprised how many public agencies, they are right now at this moment kind of flipping out about how they're going to figure out how to do hybrid meetings, but this body has figured that out for some time. So we're just going to keep on doing what we've been doing. However, the legislation does provide that we keep some of the same parameters outlined in 361. For example, if the connection in the teleconference is lost at any time, the meeting has to be stopped until that connection is restored, and we cannot require that public comment be submitted in advance. We offer that as an option. We will continue to do so, but it cannot be a requirement. Next slide. If a board member would like to participate remotely starting next month, they must notify this body at the earliest opportunity that they wish to do so, but they have to specify whether they are participating remotely either for, number one, just cause, or due to emergency circumstances, and we'll talk about what each of those means in just a moment. In any case, the member must disclose publicly what adults are in the room with them, if any, and the general nature of their relationship with that person, if it's a family member, a business associate, etc. The member must also participate through both audio and visual means. In other words, they've got to have their camera on at all times. They can't just call in from a telephone. And the member may not participate remotely for any circumstance more than 3 consecutive months of the calendar year, or more than 20% of the regular meetings in a calendar year. And for what this means for MCAG, since this is a monthly meeting, you're not going to be able to do this more than 2 times a year. So you really have to start thinking about this as only participating remotely under extenuating circumstances. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what just cause means. The legislation defines this in 4 very specific categories. The first is a caregiving need of a child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, or partner. A contagious illness, a need that you may have related to a physical or mental disability which prevents you from participating in person, and travel while on official business of the legislative body or another state or local agency. We know all of you constantly travel because you're on business of the city or the county, and that would certainly qualify for participating remotely for just cause. Again, you would have to provide a general description of the circumstance, one of those 4 categories. Can't do this for more than 2 meetings in a calendar year, and you simply have to notify us at the earliest possible opportunity. Next slide. Emergency circumstances. The definition of this, as outlined, is any physical or medical emergency that prevents your in-person attendance. You would have to provide a general description of what that emergency is, although in that description you do not need to disclose any diagnosis or personal medical information. You must provide for a separate request in each instance. The difference between this and just cause is just a notification. This requires an action of the body. So we would need to post this on the agenda if you knew about the emergency with enough notice that we could get it on the agenda. However, the legislation does spell out that you can take action at the beginning of the meeting if there was not sufficient time to place it on the agenda. I think that's all I have, so happy to take, and this is not an action item, this is for your information. I think the general takeaway is we're going to do business as usual for this body. We ask for as much notice as you could give us if you're planning to participate virtually, that you specify kind of what category you're going to participate under, and that you'll start to see next month in your packet an attendance tracker where we can track who's participating virtually and under what purview of the legislation, so that just for full public transparency, people can see how many times a year people are participating virtually. Did you have anything to add?
I know we discussed it at our last, like, how many days would staff prefer? You know, I mean, I know it says reasonably possible. I think we could go further than that as a board, just kind of, if you know that you're not going to be here for just cause, you would prefer to have that notice X amount of days in advance and not the morning of the meeting. So what would be your preference?
Our executive director might think otherwise. We usually try to get out the board packet the Friday before the meeting, so
I would say 10 days. 2 weeks is great. 10 days would give us enough time to adjust whatever we need to in the event something has to be changed about the agenda. It would require, which we're trying to make it so that that wouldn't be the case if we have a Zoom option, but just to be safe, if it blew something up on the agenda that we had to change, 10 days would give us that ability.
Okay, and then secondly, could you remind me, council, what is the definition of a quorum? I mean, I know what the definition is. How many people do we need to have a quorum?
6.
It's 6, okay. So it just, I know there's one in particular, and we're best is probably not to schedule meetings around when we're at the CSAC annual meeting, because typically all 5 of us go, and if all 5 of us were to do that option where we zoomed into the meeting, that would require that everybody else has to be here. If not, then it makes the meeting, we couldn't have it anyway, so I just want to keep that in mind. And I think, Stacy, you could check with Dahlia, and she'd be able to give you the exact dates.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments, information only?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Michael. All right. Takes us to item 13A, which is an update on the bus fleet purchases. Stacy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to do my best to make this make sense. Bear with me, because it's a lot. So, I know, but it's a lot. It's important. I want you all to see what happened after our last board meeting. This is an item that did generate considerable discussion last month. We had requested board authorization to purchase 8 full-size buses as part of TJPA's fleet replacement plan. And we had several board members that expressed concerns about whether our ridership supported the need for the larger buses. Ultimately, and something I greatly appreciated, was getting the confidence in the direction of the board to, after some additional analysis that we discussed that we would do, that the board direction was that I had the authorization to purchase the appropriate vehicle size after this additional consideration. So I want to walk you through the summary of that analysis, which is, I don't think I could fit a single detail more on this slide, but walk you through what that data looked like, what kinds of considerations were made, and I do just want to, I think, kind of jump out front with the conclusion and then walk through how we got there. So the original request last month was a $5.3 million authorization to purchase 4 35-foot, what you see here as low floor diesel, I'll just refer to them as the diesel buses. So 4 35-foot and 4 29-foot diesel buses. After we went through this, really kind of went through this analysis at a level that we hadn't before, consulted our colleagues, our contractors with First Transit who are here as well. The decision was to move all 8 of those purchases to the 29-foot diesel buses, which is the smallest of the diesel bus fleet options that we had. That did move the PO price from $5.3 million to $5.2 million. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So, I think just in summary, I kind of kicking it off to set the framework is our fleet is comprised of 2 bus types, and then as you can already see on this slide, there are a lot of variations among those types. So the top half that's a little bit darker of a green, those are the buses you're going to really see on the left side. The 24 that we have in our fleet, what I think you would consider a full-size bus. Sometimes it's not always obvious when you see them out in the community that there's a difference between, we could have a 40-foot diesel bus and we can have a 29-foot diesel bus. And then the second type are what we often call them cutaways. They're cutaway vans, shuttle buses, paratransit, microtransit, all of those things. That's the bus on the right, or that's one type of one example of that type of a bus, and we have 42 of those in our fleet in variety of sizes and configurations. And then, as I mentioned, we have 24 of the diesel buses. Those 42 buses that are the microtransit, paratransit, cutaway buses are gasoline, so they're different in a number of ways. Okay, so so the table is divided that way. You see those darker green options for the diesel buses and the lighter green options for the cutaway gasoline buses that are primarily on our microtransit and fixed transit routes. So I mentioned the numbers. 36 are low floor. The diesel buses comprise of roughly 36% of our fleet. We operate about 1.7 miles on our fixed route service a year. 1.7 million miles. I don't know if I just said 1.7 miles. a little more than that, 1.7 million miles a year with our fixed route services with these diesel buses. 64% of our fleet are the cutaway vans that we use for, as I mentioned, the paratransit and microtransit services, which is about 33,000 miles a year. So let's kind of walk through what this table looks like. So starting with kind of the far left, you see the vehicle type. I have already walked through how those are the diesel larger buses and the cutaway smaller buses. Moving out that from to the right from there indicates what they're designed for. So as you can see, the diesel buses are designed for the fixed route, the longer, more sustained service, stop and go service, and the smaller cutaway gas vehicles are designed for destination trips and then stop and wait and run a paratransit route, and there's downtime in between. It's for the on-demand or demand response services. The size is the next, or not the size, the seating capacity. So the number that's represented is the number of seats, seat options. It depends on the configuration, but the seat options there for each of the floor of the vehicle types. They also have capacities for standing passengers, so you can see those parenthetically noted, and then also the wheelchair positions that are in the column next to that. Of course, those numbers can be adjusted because those are different configuration choices, but it gives you an idea. And then, of course, noting that for the paratransit, microtransit vehicles, because those are typically on a paratransit type route, there is a higher consideration for additional wheelchair positions. But all of our vehicles our buses are ADA compliant. And then moving out to the right, then it starts talking about the useful life. This is per FTA. It's the length of time or the mileage where a bus is considered, that's what the expectant, useful life of that vehicle is. Some of those that for all of those buses on the diesel, you're looking at 12 years, 500,000 miles. And then for the gasoline cutaways, it's 7 years, 200,000 miles. And then you can see the small van, you get an extra year out of it. So then moving out from there is a purchase price. I did note for the low floor diesel, the 40-footer, that right now when we are having to start planning for and starting to purchase and procure battery electric buses, those are only available at this time in the 40-foot vehicle size, and they are $1.2 million a piece. So I noted that in there, but for the calculations that I did, I included the diesel bus so that like is, apples to apples. From the right there is the price per mile. That's an average. We did calculate this for every single bus price, and it was just pennies of a difference. So we just took an average there that's basically taking the bus price over the useful miles number. And then the cost for maintenance per mile is also an average. Again, those figures were not very different, so it just made sense to take that average. And then if you add those two together, you're getting a total cost for that vehicle per mile, again, based on the useful life and maintenance costs. Almost to the far right is how many we currently have in our fleet. And then a couple of key differences that I'll walk through. So just wanted to walk you through kind of how to read this. So I don't think I'm going to go through, you can read the numbers, you can see. I think I'm going to really focus on where the analysis kind of led us. So if you look at the purchase price over the useful life miles, the average price per mile for maintenance, all of that combined for those diesel vehicles, you're looking at a cost of $1.68 a mile over the life of that vehicle. If you do the same kind of consideration for the cutaway vans on the lower end, you're looking at that being $2.16 per mile over the life of that vehicle. So that is for a number of reasons, and some of those are in the key difference section. but I'm going to talk about them, and I have actual experts in the room that can probably answer these questions. I know they can answer these questions a lot better than I can. So aside from, it's easy to get caught up on the sticker price of the purchase price of the vehicle. But what is notable is that those larger buses are cheaper to maintain because they are built for those fixed route services. They're built for long operating hours, stop and go, that is required for a fixed route. Their suspensions, their transmission, the frame, all of that is made for that higher wear and tear type of service that will be incurred in a fixed route. The smaller cutaway vehicles, gasoline vehicles, aren't designed in the same way. They aren't designed for that stop and go. They're designed, like I said, for that demand response service, the short trips with downtime. The cab, suspension, the chassis, they're essentially heavy-duty vehicles with a bus frame, bus shell put on top of that. They're prone to needing more service. They're harder to maintain. They often will need engine, transmission replacements before the end of their useful life. They are prone to having cracked frames because of just the ongoing wear and tear on our roads. I think we've actually had some that have been welded back to keep them in service. So they're just a little more difficult to maintain and more prone to needing the maintenance. I think another important factor, it's a very important factor, is that diesel buses are safer in accidents, and that's due to their steel chassis and built-in crash barrier. They also, for fixed route service, it's important. They allow for quicker passenger. I know these aren't the technical industry terms, and I feel like our team cringes when I say this, onboarding and offboarding, but for fixed route, time is of the essence. You're moving through a schedule. They have the diesel buses have ramps instead of lifts. So when you have the smaller buses that are designed for more wheelchair passengers, there's an electric lift system, a hydraulic lift. I don't know what kind of technology it is. It's a lift to lift the wheelchairs. And then also, again, not something that would be a reason to purchase a larger diesel bus, but it certainly is helpful, as we just recently saw that they can be very effective for emergency uses, and that's not uncommon when communities, and we see it across our transit partners when there are community emergencies that transit vehicles are often brought in for responses and whatnot. So last thing I want to mention about maintenance costs and useful life. I think the other thing about the diesel buses that isn't built into this calculation, but I think is really important, is they are eligible for what's called a midlife rehab, which means you can essentially for $80,000 to $100,000 be replacing an engine or a transmission when they get to that half of life mark, so about 6 years in, and that will extend their useful life up to, I think it's an additional 12 years, roughly. They'll correct. You guys can come up and correct me, but it get more of the useful life from that vehicle, and it also then resets that warranty as well. That's not an option that's available for the smaller vehicles. So I know I ran through that, but I wanted to try to provide, and I know I'm turning my back to all my board members over here, but I wanted to just kind of break down all of the considerations when looking at what is the right vehicle type for the service that we operate. I will say that I appreciated the discussion last month because this exercise was very helpful for me. And I've been talking to our team at First Transit and NAV and our transit staff that there really isn't a need. We don't foresee a need with our ridership to be in that 40-foot or even the 35 or even the 32-foot diesel bus. The 29 is 1 foot bigger than the smallest or the largest cutaway van. And while it is still considerably more expensive. The maintenance, safety, well, once you calculate it out, it's actually not, but the purchase price is considerably more expensive. But the performance issues, the safety issues, the longer life, the maintenance considerations make it a better fit for our fixed route services, not for all of our services, just for fixed route. So it's my intention after this analysis that as we look at our fleet replacement, anytime there is a justification and a need to replace one of our diesel vehicles, to keep it in that 29-foot bus size. So that is what I want to present, but I do want to acknowledge our team from First Transit. I think you all have met Serenity Anderson. She's our general manager. She is excellent. The whole team has just been fantastic. Scott Hansen, who is First Transit's regional director for maintenance for the West region, and Ron Francis, the maintenance manager here. They are a wealth of knowledge, and I thought, aside from the financial aspect, any of the conversation or the questions around the actual vehicles or maintenance, these are your folks.
All right, all set?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Stacey. Questions? Director Espinosa.
Well, I had a question regarding on the electric. By when do we have to be changing over completely, or what percentage of the fleet needs to be changed over by the years?
I'm going to look at Jose and Nav, and I know that it is a percentage. A quarter of our procurements have to be for electric vehicles by 24. I was going to say 5. I started with the F. Lead me in. 24? Okay. So a quarter of the new buses that we procure starting in 2024 have to be battery electric. So that increases, and a full electrification has to be 2032. Oh, 2040. Does that sound right? Okay, good. So it's a slow. So that's the other thing that we've been trying to do is, quite frankly, get as many diesel vehicle replacements as we can before those triggers, because you can see that the cost of those battery electric buses is considerably higher.
That's what I was going to recommend, because they're a lot cheaper, and if we can buy more, and then actually the first electric ones are going to have going to hash out all the issues that the first ones comes, right? So hopefully
people buy those.
Yeah.
We will be receiving our first electric buses in 2023. But it is the test case for us. We'll have a few. And then, that's to kind of we're still going through the analysis on how many and what type on what services, but we are going to try a couple. We secured grants for those purchases, and one of, in fact, was in a partnership with the City of Merced for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities grant for your B Street project. So we're tipping our toe in the water, but we aren't jumping in all the way.
That was all for me. Thank you.
I'm tipping it.
Anybody else?
I'm not even committed to dipping it.
More questions? Director Pereira?
Yeah. There we go. So if I'm doing your math right, we're spending, I mean, with these numbers on the cutaways, you're telling me we're spending $35,000 a year per vehicle in maintenance cost? It just doesn't make sense.
Yes. And I will invite our First Transit folks or NAV to come, anyone else.
Yes, I took the 200,000, divided it by 7. That comes out to 28,500 miles a year that they'll drive, times $1.19 a mile is 34,000 a vehicle.
Correct. And that's preventative maintenance, like oil change, brake pads, tires, suspension, and all that. That's part of the cost per bus. Our budget item for maintenance is around $1.3 million a year. So yeah, that's,
That's for the entire fleet for engine replacement or any of the big items.
So if you take just the 119 times the 28.5, that's 1.4 million. So how could you spend 1.4 million on 42 buses and the rest are maintenance free?
Director Perry, so those 28 buses are not operating that 1.7 million miles. So one of the corrections, sorry, Stacy, but
No, hey.
so paratransit
Please
buses,
do.
those paratransit buses, it's about 308,000 miles a year, right? Go ahead, but we spend about $1.3 million, but that's a year, but that's including like oil changes.
Yeah,
brakes.
I mean, you're going to lose your engines, and unfortunately, your 200K interval on here, your vehicles will hit that really quick. You know, yes, it's a 7-year, 200,000 miles, but per year, differentials, transmissions, you know, engine overhauls, heating, air conditioning systems. We all know how the heat comes out here, and those systems on those vehicles they're not set up and designed as the heavy fixed route vehicles are, and they can't take the heat. And things are expensive, you know, and you know, your downtime, it's critical. Some of the older cutaways here, I'm not sure what those are, the 20, I think it's the 26. Really, the older Chevys are no longer around. So, I mean, you can't get parts from, they're difficult to get parts from. When you do get parts, they're extremely expensive. I fortunately, as a company, First Transit, we have a parts reclamation center, which we utilize to keep these buses on the road. So, and that's the challenge, is the expense of the parts.
The on-site labor as well, maintain the on-site labor.
Yeah, I mean, we have a welder actually on call, you know, with these buses. I know Ron loses suspensions out of the transit centers. We do everything in our power with preventative maintenance, but there are some unforeseen things that you can't predict.
Well, I understand that. I mean, I get that. So one question would be is why gas and not diesel on the cutaways? But beyond that, the math just doesn't add up. You're telling me we're spending $1.3 million a year on vehicle maintenance. Well, if we have 200,000 miles a year divided by 7 years, that's 28,500 miles a year, times $1.19 a mile, times 42 buses, comes out to 1.4 million.
But that I'll just clarify it's whichever comes first, and we're reaching 200,000 before the 7-year mark. So the FTA guideline is 200,000 miles or 7 years, but we're reaching 200,000 miles before the 7 years. So I don't think we can take you can't take the mileage equally across the 7 years because they aren't lasting the 7 years.
Right, so the mileage per year is higher, so then the 1.4 million is even higher, which tells me that you can't spend more on 42 buses than you're spending on all 66 buses. Anyways, I'm not going to go on anymore, but the math just doesn't make sense. And so maybe the math is I'm not understanding it, but yeah, I'm good.
And he says that
Anyways.
they don't.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, we're good.
Yep. Anybody else?
I just on math. I mean, if you say 1.3 million is what you're spending on maintenance across all the buses, and you got 66 buses, that works out to 20,000 a year, 19,696. Is that about right? Does that seem about right to you?
I do apologize. I apologize, Director, but you're correct. We pay $1.3 million in parts. We also pay maintenance costs to First Transit to maintain those buses. So I think it's about additional $2 million of the contract. I think, and I don't want to misspeak, but there's a part of the contract that there's operational charges and there's maintenance costs that we pay First Transit for. That $1.3 million is for parts only, and I do apologize.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
Okay. I apologize.
All right. I'm not as frustrated as I was.
No, I do apologize.
Hey, I'll fix your buses. I'll do it again. The number, the math.
Yeah.
I do apologize.
Yeah.
Yes.
I worked so hard on this, Lloyd. I'm like, how did we get that wrong?
And I can I'll send you an email to break down the cost what we pay First Transit to do their services, and then the 1.3 is just parts. And I do apologize.
And if I may, with the fixed route buses, she's right. When you come to the midlifes, you're going to midlife those at about 250K. You're going to hit the miles before you hit the years. You're going to throw your bus away at 200,000 miles, which is your smaller cutaway buses. You'll be able to midlife these and extend them another 8 years. So.
Yeah, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So run that. So when you get to 250,000 miles.
Yeah, on your heavy fixed route vehicles, then you would midlife them.
Let's just say in theory that's at 6 years.
Yeah, well, yeah, in theory, but not 9 times out of 10, and I'm telling you from experience, you're going to hit the mileage before you hit the years. Just because of the area you operate in here, you're going to hit the miles.
At least for me, and just looking at the numbers, I would never buy another one of the cutaway buses again, and I would only buy the 29-inch diesel buses.
And
I
from
know
a
it's a
maintenance
bigger.
standpoint, as a director, I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, I mean, if you're just looking at the numbers and the maintenance cost, and you divide that out, and it's $650,000, and if it was me, I'd probably buy the 32-foot one just because it only costs $10,000 to get 3 extra feet. But anyhow, and I know we don't want buses running up and down the road that aren't full, but the cutaway buses just seem like they're a losing proposition.
They're not designed for this duty cycle they're running in. You know, they're a demand service vehicle. You know, you call up, I need a ride to go to the med center, you get picked up, you go there. The wheelchair lifts are not, you know, with all the mobility devices out today, a lot of them exceed the weight limits on those particular vehicles, and the ones that don't, they're right on the edge. It tears the suspension up on that side of the vehicle. So it's just a constant battle.
Thank you.
To keep them safe and on the road.
I did just, I don't know if we click through them, but if you'll just give me one click through, just one. The buses now that we're talking about, that the 8 that now will be 29 foot are going to replace that. See how we have 21 of the cutaway buses, the 28 foot. 8 of those are going to be replaced now with 8 29-foot diesels. So a foot bigger, a little more space, a little more expensive on the upfront, but the benefits on performance and long life and everything are maximized. And I really see that being our trend moving forward.
All right. More questions, comments?
Just appreciate the effort. Thank you.
I learned a lot.
I'll be stepping out. I got another important MAC meeting in Planeta, so thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Good luck, sir. Thank you. All right, we got
Like this. Like this. Actually, like this.
All right, moving on. Anything else? No direction?
No.
Okay, information only. All right, thank you all. Thank you for a good discussion. All right, 15A, more budget considerations for member agencies. This has to do with the RWA.
I promise this item is not like the last one in terms of how much I have. This is only one slide. Similar to the MCAG item, this is again a slide that and a memo that I put together and sent out to the jurisdictions. Again, just kind of bringing attention to a couple of different items that should be kept into consideration when budgets are being developed. At the local level. And I also wanted to make sure we're keeping these 3 things separate in our minds and in the way we're discussing them. The first is the existing recyclables contract that we have, a recyclables transportation and processing contract that we have with CARTS. And that is in the contract language, which actually the increase was deferred to this year. But in that contract language, there is a scheduled increase. And so that's what you see to be going into effect July 1 from $64.95 a ton to $68.72 a ton. And those affect the haulers for the city of Merced, then Merced County on the east side, and the city of Atwater. And then the second is the organics DBO, the design, build, operate contract. That's the response, the facility, or the response that we have gone through with the jurisdictions to have organics, to be able to receive your organics at the Highway 59 landfill. There's been a lot of discussion with this at this board with the TRB. Staff has been involved across the jurisdictions in selecting this vendor. The contract for this design, build, operate contract with Agriman will come before you next month in March, and that's with an estimated or an assumed rate based on that proposal for your organic waste at $56 a ton. This right now, your green waste per ton is $10.50, and your brush and wood is $21 a ton. This is that significant increase that we all have been expecting with 1383. This will affect anyone who's bringing their organic material to the landfill. Based on the negotiations that many of you have had, or the new contracts that you've procured with your haulers, based on those, we know that the city of Merced and the county on the east side, and I might have misspoken if the west side recyclables are also coming to us under that contract. So no, just the east side. Okay, so on the organics, also the east side of the county, and this will also affect private haulers. So it's anyone who's bringing organic material. So if you have a landscape company and you're bringing your organic waste out, this is the rate that will be at the landfill. And then the third is always been like a half step behind the 1383 conversation. As many of you who've been on the board for a few years know, there was a request to do a tipping fee study, and the tip fee is like the gate fee. It's the per ton charge that you get charged when you come into the landfill. This is for that municipal solid waste only. It's currently $31 to $43 a ton, depending on your geography. So you recall, the existing structure takes into account your jurisdiction's geography or distance from the landfill. So cities like Dos Palos pay a lower rate, while Las Vegas and Merced pay a higher rate because they're closer to the landfills. So it took into consideration what you were paying on your hauling costs. The board asked us to look at that structure and also just doing an assessment of, is the tip fee generating the revenue we need to operate the landfill? We have not had a tip fee increase in 10 or 12 years. That is largely due to the importation revenue that we've been able to keep those rates low. But we do anticipate, based on what we're seeing in the study, the need for at least a 10% increase to revenue through the tip fee. And so we, just as a reminder, we will have a workshop on this the evening of February 22nd at 5 o'clock at the Sam Pipes Room. We really encourage you all to be there. It is going to will prevent having to have a monster item here that we really need to dig in, and that will give the opportunity for you and your staff, city managers, public work directors, whoever would benefit, to be there and meet with our team and the consultant. And that new fee, that new tip fee, whatever that adjustment ends up being, will affect all customers at both facilities, Billy Wright and Highway 59. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Stacy. Any questions for Stacy? Any comments? Director Nagy.
Yeah, I have just a comment basically, but on the green waste that's going up 500% and the brush and wood that's going up 250%, is there any anticipation of further drops out in the county? I mean, it's hard enough to get them to bring the stuff to the landfill as it is, and now you're going to have a 500% increase. My worry is that this stuff's going to end up out on Highway 59 or somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, that's what scares me about this.
I mean, I don't know
the reasoning why we have to do it.
Right. I don't know how it is, and that will be potentially a secondary problem that will arise. James, did I mess anything up? You have anything else to add? All right.
All right, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, takes us back again to Stacy, to item 16, which is the Executive Director's Report. Just getting warmed up.
Man.
All right.
Now the real report starts. Let me get my notes. Now, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, just a couple of things, famous words. I just wanted to say thank you to Directors Yanez, Moran, and Nelson for attending our board orientation, our orientation for new board members last week. They were very patient, had good questions. And as well, for the first time, we had our CAC chairman attend that meeting as well, Rene Gutierrez. Also, just as a reminder, if you are not aware, we have an HHW event this Saturday at the Highway 59 landfill. We have on March 4th the community cleanup that will take place in Las Banas at the fairgrounds. I have heard from many of you about your attendance at the workshop on the 22nd. If you have not let me know, please do let me know so we can make sure we have enough food for everybody. If you have any special dietary restrictions, that's also helpful too. And with that, I just thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Stacy. All right, director's reports. Starting on my left, Darren, anything?
Nothing to report.
Mike, any director's report? Lloyd?
No, sir.
All right. Scotty? April?
I don't have anything.
All right. Nothing? All right. Okay, nothing from me. All right. I'll skip right. Couldn't see it. All right, it is. Jose, I apologize. Anything from you? This is item 17, director's reports.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, takes us to adjournment. It is now 5:12. This meeting's adjourned.